US and Ukrainian officials have reportedly wrapped up another round of talks in Riyadh, a day after a 12-hour meeting between American and Russian delegations on a partial ceasefire in Ukraine. Washington and Moscow were expected to release a joint statement on their talks, but Russian media now blaming Kyiv, saying the joint statement was not adopted due to, quote, Ukraine's position. And for more, we're joined by Will Denselow from Kyiv and Dasha Chernyshova from Moscow. And let's start with Will in Kyiv first. Will, the US, it's not a three-way talk. So the US speaking to Russia yesterday, speaking to Ukraine today. Do we know anything that came out of talks today between Washington and Kyiv?
Well, we're still waiting for further information on the substance of those talks that, according to some reports, lasted around an hour or so. This comes, of course, after the US and Ukrainian officials held talks on Sunday in the Saudi capital, which Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky described as useful technical talks. As far as Kyiv is concerned, we understand that a large part of the discussions revolved around Ukraine's requests for a partial ceasefire to include parameters including a cessation to attacks on critical infrastructure, including energy facilities. But the message is loud and clear from Kyiv. They want to see Ukraine's allies ramp up support for Ukraine, both militarily, both when it comes to defense, and ramping up sanctions on Moscow. We've heard from Ukraine's foreign minister saying after a massive attack by Russia on the northeastern city of Sumy that injured, according to reports, over 100 people. They say that is evidence that while Russia talks of ceasefires, more pressure is needed to ensure that Moscow were to actually implement it. Now, while the two sides seem far apart on a widespread ceasefire, interestingly, a fresh bit of data has been released from the Kyiv Institute for Sociology. According to their recent polling, some 77% of Ukraine's residents are in favour of some kind of ceasefire.
All right, this is Will Denselow there reporting to us live from Kyiv. And Dasha Chernyshova joins us from Moscow now. Dasha, we just heard from Will there in Kyiv about that loud and clear message from Ukraine. Moscow, so today Will was saying about an hour, that meeting, but Moscow had a marathon 12-hour meeting between US and Russian officials. There was supposed to be a joint statement that should have been jointly adopted, and that did not happen. What do we know came out of that session yesterday between Washington and Moscow?
Well, we know from the Kremlin that the content, the substance of those talks is now being carefully analyzed. At the Kremlin, the Russian president is well aware of what has happened during those 12 hours of the negotiations in Saudi Arabia. We also hear from the top negotiator, Grigory Karasin, saying that many issues have been discussed. And also the understanding now, given the statements coming from Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, is that the focus has been indeed on the Black Sea initiative and their attempts to revive it. Lavrov has said that Russia was seeking the safety of navigation and also the revival of this initiative, but also with conditions attached to that so that the Russian side of the deal would be implemented. And Moscow says there should be no ambiguity and double meanings in any statements, in any wording regarding this initiative. Now, Moscow insists that no one should try to squeeze Russia out from the grain market. Moscow wants to have the possibility to export to the poor countries, and that is supposed to be the main focus of this Black Sea initiative. He also has stressed that it is impossible to trust Kyiv, and Kyiv should not be believed and trusted by word. And the Russian position here is that they have made it very clear to the American side in the negotiations that only Washington's orders can actually bring about some results. reports, orders to Kyiv, by that, obviously, this is what Moscow means, that they should not be attacking the energy infrastructure, that they should be abiding by other obligations. That would be the guarantee of security for the Russian side. So we understand that indeed the content of these talks will not be made public. That's according to Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. But on top of that, the joint statement, Moscow says, has not been indeed adopted because of the Ukrainian position. And there is no surprise in Moscow with regard to that. So obviously, at this stage, we understand no talks are scheduled to take place involving Russia, Ukraine and the United States. No conversation is expected to take place between the presidents of Russia and America, but it could be arranged quickly. So definitely the negotiations are now going to proceed, and we are hearing the Russian negotiators say that they will be establishing the format for the contact with the American side, saying such opportunity has recently emerged, but at the same time they do point to the fact that there are very wide differences.
Dasha Chernyshova, there are wide differences, and Russia looking to Washington to put that pressure on Ukraine. Dasha Chernyshova reporting live to us there from Moscow.